Welcome, everyone. I'm Greg Archer, and it's wonderful to connect with our Esalen community here today. We have the dynamic Lucia Horan joining us for this Esalen interview. Lucia was born into the family of Five Rhythms and began dancing with the late Gabriel Roth, the founder of Five Rhythms Method, when she was a child. Raised here in the tranquil community of Esalen Institute in Big Sur, Lucia became a certified teacher of Five Rhythms more than 20 years ago and is a recognized international teacher of Five Rhythms and Insight Meditation, which is fantastic. She leads many workshops at Esalen throughout the year. Lucia, welcome. What a delight to connect with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a joy to be here with you, Greg.
It's great to see you. It's great to connect with you. I'm asking everybody, how has this time been for them? So how has this time been for you?
Thank you. Well, yeah, curious time, interesting time. I think, like for many people, it's been a mixed bag with a lot of different emotions that have been coursing through this experience from the weeks as they evolve and change. And most recently, what I really feel is that this has been a time of deep reflection for me and a time to really reassess where I am and what I'm doing in the world and my impact in the world. So I've really taken this time to dip into the empty space and do some deeper reflections.
Well, yeah, and in Big Sur, I can see a little bit of the background, whether it's a reflection or just through a window or something. It's very beautiful there. Big Sur is gorgeous. So, yeah, a reflection in Big Sur.
Thank you.
How can you beat that? So how are you staying connected to your extended community during this time? Because you do a lot of workshops throughout the year with a lot of big gatherings, and I'm sure it must be different now. I mean, obviously, all of us are in a different space now. We're at home, but how are you remaining connected to your community? What are some ways you're remaining connected?
Well, on a personal level, just simple ways that I think everybody is staying connected these days, in the sense of a lot of internet and FaceTime and Zoom meetings and phone calls, and just trying to reach out to my friends and family around the world who I love and miss and am concerned about. And I'm not doing a lot of teaching right now. I'm doing a lot of private work with clients online. And aside from that, just really trying to stay connected through seeing each other virtually. But it's hard to feel the distance, especially with my family who's very nearby, but my parents are older and we don't want to risk exposing each other. So it's been, like for everybody, been really challenging to be so close and yet so far away. And I think that's the same for many people who live near their families but have chosen to remain in the safety of isolation. And that comes with its struggles. And I think always kind of every day I feel like I want to push that edge a little bit and say, just, is it okay if we see them yet? And yet here we are remaining inside of our very small bubble. So I think that the only other way I feel like I'm staying connected beyond the virtual world is just through the dance and through the prayer, which I feel like connects me to the larger network that we're a part of right now in our world community as we face this situation.
Right, right. What do you feel that this current pandemic, this time, is attempting to teach us? If you were to kind of venture to guess, we are all in this together.
Right.
What do you think that one or two of the lessons might be from something like this?
Well, I think that it's the most obvious one that I think most people are looking at right now, and what I feel very deeply is that we're in a situation where our world has been divided by language, race, culture, religion, education, class, and all of these systems, which really, in the end of the day, have been broken down to make us aware of the fact that we are share in a shared experience of this reality. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what your education is, we are facing the same situation. And it's been really, really powerful to see everyone in the world just stop, and to see that collectively we have a lot more power than we ever realized. And when you look at the crisis we're in, both with this pandemic as well as with the climate change right now, we, by simply pausing, are having this tremendous impact on the world and the consciousness beginning to change. And I think that that's ultimately what we're facing right now, is a really a piercing of this membrane of the idea of separation. And suddenly now, as that is broken apart, we're recognizing this is leaving no one behind. We are certainly all citizens of the world facing this current crisis, and the humans are really on the number one of the extinction list right now. We're in an absolute crisis, and if we do not start to unify and come together as one, and stop separating ourselves and start understanding our connections, we're not going to survive here. So this is a choice right now, and in whatever strange way this is coming to us, I hope that the silver lining in this experience is that people start understanding, recognizing, and making different choices to understand our impact in the global situation that we're in right now, so that we can start to see each other as unified instead of divided. And when you look at politics and we're just constantly dividing each other, and this is one thing that is bringing us together. And I hope that it has a very long lasting effect.
Mm. Yes, here's to that. Here's to that, indeed. Well, Five Rhythms connects us with ourselves and groups when we're together in that capacity. Let's dive into the magic of Five Rhythms, if we can, for a little bit. Can you share why this practice is so effective, and maybe move us through the mystique of the Five Rhythms, and each of the Five Rhythms? And every time you speak of this, I love when you talk about it, because there's so much passion when you speak of it. But no pressure. Don't feel like you have to.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that one of the interesting things about uh, the piercing of consciousness, when consciousness begins to change, is it's that's ultimately part of what Gabrielle was so fascinated with, was how energy moves and how consciousness change. There's a very direct path which we find in the dance, where normally we're living in this delusion of separateness from everyone. And when we dance, we very, very quickly come into an experience of oneness, feeling a part of something, feeling connected to something larger than ourselves in our individualistic and narcissistic ways. So I often think of the movement and the meditation of movement as being this incredible direct path, where we're unifying the sacred trinity of breath, movement, and spirit to harness us in to present time awareness. And it's awakening this deep magic of interconnection. And in some strange way, that's also what this pandemic is doing. Maybe not with the with the with the glory and sweetness. It's coming with a lot of tragedy and grief with it. But the dance itself has a way to connect us very quickly. So I look at this all as energy and motion. That's what Gabrielle taught us to do. And as we look at even this pandemic, we're given through the language of the Five Rhythms a way to understand what we're experiencing, and simply see it as energy and motion. So here we are, and in the first weeks of this crisis happening, we're taking in the truth of this situation, and we see that as a very flowing energy. This illness has come in, and now it is permeated around the world. And when we came into that truth, there became this second stage, a staccato stage, where we all had to isolate and put ourselves into protection. And staccato is the yang energy, which allows us to draw the boundary around ourselves to create protection around the heart, the body, the mind. But it also is the bridge that connects us to others. So in that yang energy, though we're protecting, isolating, and drawing boundaries, we're also finding that larger heart connection with the world, just in a different way. And as we isolate and come in, we see, oh, there's another energy which is arising now in the planet, which is the chaos energy. It's the union of the feminine and masculine, or yin and yang energies, and it starts to break everything apart. It's breaking apart the way that we understand the world now, the way that we move in the world, the way that we interact with each other and travel, and to see our impact and our carbon footprint, and take things in a way to, I guess you say, there's like this, just this surrendering to this larger truth, which which is very inconvenient for us. And life has a time where this chaos energy comes in and it starts to break everything apart. And that energy, when you look at it not as negative or positive, but just purely as energy and movement, we start to see the chaos is here also to serve us in some way. The breaking apart and the deconstruction, which many of us are experiencing in the world right now, also is the very energy that lends to great change. Unfortunately, often it takes a big crisis, it takes a lot of loss for our humankind to be willing to change. And this is certainly that energy. Chaos has broken apart the way that we move in the world, the way that we understand the world, even the illness itself. So here we are in this tragic period of loss, in this massive state of chaos. Our systems, our economies are breaking down. We are riding this huge wave of chaos, and that's what this pandemic is. And it holds inside of it all of the grief and all of the emptying. But in order for any kind of great change to happen, this is the cost. This is the way the universe changes things. So we deconstruct, we rearrange, and when we come back together, you'll see there is the lyrical stage of the energy in motion, which Gabrielle named, this state where everything is altered now from the experience that we've been through. The peak of that experience will crescendo, and as the wave starts to break and the energy starts to shift and we start to get a hold of the pandemic, we are all going to be changed. We are all going to be rearranged in some way, shape, or form. The way we move in the world, the way we interact, our awareness around our movements, our contacts, our germs, all of these things are rearranging consciousness in a certain way. And so that's really the lyrical stage of how this wave is moving through our world and breaking across our world. And it will come to the fifth rhythm as well. As we change, then we're then asked to enter into the stillness phase of the energy, and that is to integrate, to take time and space to allow for the changes to settle in and integrate them, so that we can see how different we are as individuals and as a collective whole, based on the experience of this movement and the wave of energy which has broken through our countries and our cultures and our world. And when that arc has crested and we've moved from flowing, receiving this information as deep and tragic, staccato, to drinking, making the boundaries to safe and protected, surrendering to the great unknown in chaos, that something bigger is happening that we can't control, and all we can do now is stay safe and let go and surrender until this passes. Certainly in lyrical, we will be different from this experience collectively as human race. And in stillness, we will be asked to move forward and live with the truth of what has been changed due to this energy moving through our world at this time. And so we see in the language of understanding how energy moves, this beautiful reflection for what is happening right now. Gabrielle understood everything as energy, so she would see all that is moving just as in the natural cycle of life. and we are changed because of it. And so the more fluid that we can be with the truth of that and the acceptance about that, the more that we can turn down the dial of suffering, so that we're not in so much resistance, clinging to the old ways or pushing away the ways that we don't want. Accept, let go, surrender. This is happening now. And the more that we cling or push away, the more suffering we create for ourselves. The more that we can soften into the ease and grace of acceptance of what is happening in the world and that everything is changing, the more that we can have that ease in ourselves. And though it may be very painful, and it certainly is very painful for those people who are affected most directly by this virus, who have lost their loved ones around this and who are grieving now. And I think part of what we're also, our responsibility now is to also accept that grief is collectively a part of our experience, as so many people are passing away that we love, that we know, that we are connected to through these threads of our lives, and that we're holding that grief and moving with that grief in a way that allows it to move and empty, so that we aren't calcified and hardened and living in a constant state of fear. The opposite of that, to hold everything in and to will eventually, I think, turn into a neurosis, which is gonna affect people negatively. So if we can collectively hold all that's happening right now and allow for the grieving to move through us, to serve us and wash the shores of our own hearts, so that we can accept the changes that are happening now and the truth of those changes. We support each other, because this is too big for us to hold alone. We have to hold this together. Think of all those who are passing now, all their families who are affected by this. We need to hold each other in this. It's too much for any one person. So part of the work that I do is to hold that the collective experience, and I think that that's very important at this time. Of course, we all want to stay positive, but there's also a very important part of this experience, which is to face the truth, as hard as that is, and collectively hold the grief which is moving through us, so that it doesn't stagnate and become a negative force in our lives.
Yeah. So articulate and beautifully put. So flow, staccato, chaos, lyrical, stillness. And we can each learn from each of those energies.
Correct.
Yeah.
And right now I think the hardest part is to rest in the unknown. You know, when we're surrendering in the face of great chaos and great change, where we feel helpless, you know, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I do anything? And all we can do is stay home, unless you're a healthcare worker. You know, there is a great frustration in that, and we're a culture of doers and changers and making things happen, and we're so used to going out and operating that way. And now we're in a situation where the best thing we can do is to stay home and protect each other, and protect ourselves. So, you know, that resting in the unknown is that chaos element, and chaos doesn't conveniently end when we want it to. You know, to really understand
No.
the energy of chaos, which I've dedicated my life to, and Gabrielle's work to, you know, is like, it comes in these waves, wave after wave, and then you think the wave is done, you think that set is finished, and you're exhausted from it, and another one comes, and another one comes, until it slowly starts to subside. But it is not convenient. It is not something that we choose. It's something that is just moving. So all we can do is rest in the unknown for now, surrender, let go, accept what is, and know that this too shall pass. And it may take time.
Yeah, it may take time indeed. Well, you talk about, you know, since we are all at home, we can move and practice these different phases or different aspects of the five rhythms at home. So if you were to suggest to people a good way to begin, even if they're new to it, what comes to mind? I mean, can they go to your website? Can they look at some things that might inspire them to actually begin practicing that kind of movement practice?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have many gateways into to practicing, and whether you're new to the experience or you're someone who's steeped in the experience, we have a tremendous amount of online offerings right now. So if you go to the fiverhythms.com website, then you'll see the listing of all the online classes there. And they're going on at every time of day around the world. We have over 400 teachers around the world, and many of them are now holding online sessions. So there's also a Five Rhythms app, which allows you access to classes and lectures and workshop information, which is just readily available. And I always, of course, invite people to take some time to read Gabrielle's books. And now that many people are at home, maybe having more time than normal, to look into the work that she's written, because it's really profound.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So I'm curious, having been close to Gabrielle, what are one or two amazing bits of wisdom that you took away from being with her and working with her and learning from her? Because she was quite an extraordinary being, you know, and I'm curious how that affected you.
Well, there's so many things to pull from, and so many moments that I've shared with her in my life of growing up on the dance floor and with her. One of the most powerful things that she taught was about the discipline that it takes to be free. And though her form is a method, there's a tremendous amount of freedom inside of it. And I think that a lot of us are looking for a sense of connection, feeling isolated in different ways in our lives. And she offered us this very simple map to understand how energy moves, and to work with a discipline that has a tremendous amount of freedom within it. And I've realized over the years that there is something so simple about that when I'm able to trust a very simple method, a method that works and has worked for a long time, all the magic happens inside of that. If I simply just trust the rhythms and trust the practice, everything else happens, and I don't need to add anything to it. So it's something that the deep wisdom around understanding the relationship of the yin and the yang, the discipline and the freedom, and the stillness and the movement. And there is represented all of life in some degree. Gabrielle was a mystic, she was this incredible mystical person who could look straight through you. I mean, one of her greatest abilities was her capacity to see people, to really see them deeply, and to pierce straight to the core. She gave me an understanding and a connection to my body as a vehicle and a vessel and an oracle to connect to the divine and connect to myself, connect to others, to connect to the universe, to the great mystery, to the spirit, to life, and to see beyond the normal understandings of division and separateness. And I think that it's in that place that for me, I wanted to journey, but also wanted to come back and be able to share with others so that our world can live in a more connected and compassionate way.
That's beautiful. That's rich and deep. Yeah, thank you. Letting that sink in, just like hearing that. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. How would you define spirit?
The great unknown. There's probably no perfect answer for that question, right? I mean, that's the ultimate search. What is spirit? We ask these questions, um, and they're such big questions. There's the great unknown. When we start to dissect a question like that and look at what is spirit according to my view, or according to the teachers that I've worked with, um, there's really a direct connection between breath and spirit. It's like the mystery that animates us, that unifies and fuses with the cellular structure of our bodies, and that breath and that union is what creates the mystery of aliveness of all sentient beings. I mean, I only know that spirit and soul is magnified with breath, and in many cultures and languages, actually breath and spirit are the same word. English is one of the few languages that separates spirit and breath, into two different words. But I know that when there is not a lot of breath, there is often not a lot of spirit or energy or mana or chi. And the more that I am able to move, and the more that I get rooms moving and hundreds of people and more moving collectively together, there's an opening of the vessel of the body, and the more breath that comes down and comes into us and comes through us, the more that spirit rises in the room. Now, I watched and observed through working with thousands of people around the world what raises spirit, what raises soul, what actually ignites that passion and that aliveness inside of us. And I find a direct relationship between the sole of your foot and the soul inside. The sole of your foot and the soul inside. And when we lift our feet and we raise the sole of our foot, raise the soul of the spirit, and then we start to come alive, and we become more alive and more awake and more attuned and more alert, and all of the senses awakened and alivened at the same time. So my journey towards awakening soul and awakening spirit and understanding and even asking that question of what is this, is to say, raise your foot up, raise your soul up, raise the soul of your foot, and you raise the soul of the body. Where does soul come from? It comes from the deep down, from the roots, from the ancestry, from the earth. That's where we're driving and drawing that power from. When there's no breath, when there's no movement, the soul is not moving, the soul is not moving. The feet are not moving, the breath is not moving. It's all diminished. The bandwidth of our experience is slowed down so much. And then the more that we awaken the soul, the spirit, it becomes alive, the breath becomes alive. It's like the broadband starts. And that's where this deeper communication happens. But we have to open up, to get out of the way of ourselves, so that we can turn on that broadband. That how much information can you gain? We got to open it wide. So.
Wow. Oof. Love that. What do you love most about the work that you've been doing, this work?
I love being with people. I love the work that I do in tracking the collective energy and meeting people where they are, and then taking them somewhere together. And for me, part of why it's been challenging at this time to really reframe my work to some degree into a virtual capacity is because what I relate to as a teacher and as a woman and as a mother and as a wife and in a leadership role in this time is because I'm with people, and there's an aliveness to that. And it's sometimes harder to feel that same capacity when you're experiencing each other virtually, because the love and the passion that is awakened inside of me comes from the experience of being together sitting together, of practicing quietly in stillness, as a sangha, as a whole, as dancing collectively together. So for me, that's what this is about. That's where the passion is for me, and it always has been. Born and raised in a community, dancing through communities, in in my life and throughout the world. It's the love and the passion.
Mm, gorgeous, gorgeous. Um, I ask people this a lot. What brings you a sense of wonder and awe?
Well, that's right now an easy one to answer because I have a 2-year-old. And everything everything is amazing. Just watching her develop and watching her eyes and wonder, seeing things for the first time, and taking walks with her and seeing the drips of water hanging from the spider's webs, and the fruit and the flowers, and it's just this amazing way to see the world with such wonderment through a child's eyes. And I think anyone who has a child understands that as you go through different periods of their life, you revisit those periods of your own life to reawaken the way that we saw at those different ages and stages, and the wonderment in the youth and the understanding that she's coming to is just an absolute joy. I've never felt more
Mm,
blessed in my life
mm, mm.
than living through her eyes in some way.
It's lovely. It's lovely. How do you feel this work that you've been doing helped you expand your own human potential? It sounds like you may have touched upon that in some of the other things you shared, but um, Esalen's a lot about expanding our human potential. How has this work helped you expand yours?
Well, that's a great question. I have there's the work that I do has as many folds inside of it and many facets, but primarily I'm first and foremost um, trained and studied with the 5 rhythms, but also deeply, deeply connected to the insight practice and the path of the Dharma, the path of the Satipatthana, the path of awakening or becoming. And there, as Rumi said, there are 1,000 ways to kiss the ground, and there are 1,000 gateways in. As we access I think, our human potential as individuals, we're also accessing our human potential as a collective. For me, one of the biggest pieces of that experience has been, as I've worked through my own process of healing and different traumas, to be broken apart in soul, mind, heart, and body through trauma, and the impact of trauma kind of splitting apart all of these different aspects, which I thought I had a grip on understanding. And for myself, living through experiences where I felt very victimized and not sure if I would ever change the view on that, doing the work has helped me reframe the relationship to my experience of what I've lived through. And that reframing has brought a tremendous amount of appreciation and gratitude and joy to things I never thought I would be in appreciation for. And that's to say that as we shift and do the work, we start to take each of the pieces of our own brokenness and put them together into wholeness, and that resiliency of recovering and unifying actually has made me much stronger than I ever thought I would or could be. And in that, I've been expanded my own capacity for compassion, and as I've leaned into my own suffering, I've also come to a place of healing, which has allowed me to help and hold space and be with other people's suffering in a very, very deep way. And when you look at the sitting with and hearing the stories and dancing through the things that people are suffering in their lives of losing children and parents, and there's just the traumas of our culture, is we are in an era where we need to be able to go beyond ourselves and beyond myself and my issues, to transform them so that my greatest hindrances can become and has become my greatest strength. And as that becomes a strength and a power, then I also am empowering others to do the same, so that we collectively can grow stronger and expand our capacity to be with what is in ourselves and what is in the world around us. Because this is not the time to isolate. This is the time to connect and support, and hold collectively what we can't hold individually. And I think that that's a huge aspect of our human potential, is like to transform our own stories. We can't change that there is pain. We can't change what the story is, but we can change our relationship to it. And that itself brings a tremendous amount of liberation, which I think is the ultimate work of the Dharma, and the work of transforming ourselves and awakening our human potential, individually and collectively.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes to that. Yes, yes, yes. Well, one last question for you. What's the most interesting thing you've been learning about yourself lately?
I wish I just had a perfect answer for you, Greg, on that one. I might have to get back to you. But what I know right now feels like very little. I guess this sense of, coming into any kind of mastery and having an idea that I know something, and having a situation that really breaks apart what I know about myself. I mean, I know the wisdom inside, I know the path and the journey, but how this looks and the structure of the trajectory in which I'm traveling, I feel like I'm resting more in the unknown right now than the known. And I think that that's something that I have been learning about, is the reconfiguration of self. And at my age and where I am as a new mother, I'm actually doing the opposite of saying, instead of saying, what do I know now? I'm actually doing the opposite and asking myself, who am I now?
Ooh,
Who am I in this? And I don't have the answer. I'm looking for the answer, and I'm asking the universe, who am I now?
yeah, that's a great, great question, that we all can ask ourselves during the day, especially now when we have more time, to actually sit still and be still. I really love that question. I'm going to use that for myself. Thank you for sharing that, really. Um,
You're welcome.
Lucia, thank you for joining us today. It's a joy to connect with you. It's always a joy to hear you speak of the five rhythms, but also about the fluidity of life and energy and how it moves. And you articulate it so well. Where can we point people to learn more about you and your work?
Please visit my website, which has a tremendous amount of information on it, luciahoran.com. And I have a lot of videos and information there, and also break down how I work. And right now, this week on Thursday, we'll start there's an online free class. So all the classes that I'm offering online now are free, and you'll be able to get the information there off the website, luciahoran.com. And you'll also be able to see the book, Dancing with the Dharma, which is a beautiful book of Dharma and five rhythms. So if anybody is interested in learning more about that, or doing some private counseling, mentoring with me, all the information is there on my website.
Great. And that's Thursday, April 24th.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for everyone, Lucia does workshops at Esalen throughout the year. Please stay connected with us. Learn more about Lucia's workshops and all of our workshops at esalen.org/learn. You can stay connected with us during this time. We have a lot of different content that's coming out to inspire folks and keep us all connected during this pandemic. Dive into our site, esalen.com, and press learn more. If you click on that and click on connection in a time of social distancing, you'll see a whole bunch of things there that might inspire you. So thank you for joining us today, Lucia. Thank you again for your time, and may we all venture forth with some grace and ease.
Thank you, Greg. It's been lovely to be with you. Anybody who wants to email me, have any questions, please do so. I'm available and I respond to everything. And my last thing I'd like to contribute is just to say that I'm hoping, with all fingers and toes crossed, that the next retreat I have will be in July at Esalen, which is a property-wide retreat, which we've been planning for a long time. So I very, very much hope that that happens in July, and I'll look forward to seeing you all there. If not, please connect with me online. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you. Everyone be well. We'll see you very soon.